The third section of the poem presents a graphic picture of a woman being tortured to death. She is lying on a cement floor. Why is the woman tortured to death? Because she spoke, because she wrote. Her word has brought her this extremely terrifying death. For long years, Margaret Atwood was an active member of Amnesty International, the international organization headquartered in London, which works for the protection of human rights. Margaret Atwood is also an out and out feminist. In the lines under consideration, we find an intersection of the two important passions of the life of Margaret Atwood: human rights and feminism. It is obvious that this is what happens to dissident writers under totalitarian regimes. The poet refuses to specify where these frightening incidents are taking place, but it is obvious that they are taking place in some totalitarian society, maybe in Central America, maybe in the Caribbean. Why is the woman undergoing this fate? Because of the word. The concluding lines of the section work out a powerful conflation between the poet herself and the victim. The poet says that this poem is not written by her but by the woman tortured to death. Not even by the woman tortured to death, but by the body of the woman, the fingerless body of the woman tortured to death. Thus, this poem is an attempt to lend a voice to the voiceless victims of totalitarian regimes, especially the voiceless female victims of totalitarian regimes, who are victims not merely of totalitarian regimes but also of patriarchal societies. The fourth section focuses further attention on the torture victim. The body of the victim lies on the cement floor. It resembles an operation. It looks like an operation. It looks like a medical operation. But it is not one, despite the fact that it shares some features with the medical operation. For example, the blood. For example, the spread legs. For example, the sounds made by the victim. The point is that it is not a medical operation. It is just an attempt, and a successful attempt at that, to torture a woman to death because she dared to write in a way which was unacceptable to the totalitarian regime. The poet now wonders whether it's a case of birth, whether it's a case of childbirth. After all, the woman is lying on the floor with her legs spread out. It is not a case of childbirth. It is only a case of a woman being tortured to death. And for those who torture the woman, it's only a job. It's an opportunity to display their skill. The contrast is between the suffering, the death of the woman, and the attitude of her torturers. The poet admits that perhaps it is an art. It is partly an art because it can be done badly or it can be done well. That is what the torturers tell themselves. So, it is certainly an art to some extent. What stands out here is the dynamic identification of the poet with the woman who is the subject matter of the passage. It is easy for the poet to identify herself completely with the woman for at least two reasons. The poet is a woman, and the poet is a writer. The woman is tortured to death because she spoke, because she is a writer. It is the word which has brought this terrible death on the unfortunate woman. It would be fruitful to make an attempt to relate these powerful lines with The Handmaid's Tale, the dystopian novel of Margaret Atwood, which paints a frightening picture of a strongly patriarchal, quasi Christian theocracy established in the near future in New England.